Hi, everyone, and welcome to The X, a podcast from inside Silicon Valley about how experience shapes everything, from products to businesses to entire industries. I'm Brian McLean, and I'm here with Demetrius Madrigal. This is a bonus episode. We wrapped season 8 last week, but since Apple made a huge announcement, we wanted to talk about it. All right, let's jump in. Good morning, Dee. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I saw that this announcement I made. I actually forgot that it was coming out. I knew that the event was coming up, but then I got distracted. We had family visiting, and then it was like on Wednesday. I heard people saying like, "Oh, iPhone 15." I was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot that came out completely." So I had to get caught up after the fact.
Normally I wouldn't do an episode just dedicated to the iPhone because they do a new release every year and it's usually incremental and there's nothing like majorly innovative with it. But this one made a lot of sense because the updates that did happen were, mostly like these nice spec bumps and things like that. But the big one was the USB-C for iPhone and AirPods Pro. That's a
Yeah,
really big deal. I know they were forced to do it, but it's still a big deal, and boy, is it going to make my life a lot easier moving forward.
yeah. I thought it was interesting that number one, they were forced to do so. They literally had to pass legislation in Europe in order to to force Apple to do this.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you're tuning in for your first time, I'm primarily like I have Apple devices, but I'm primarily a Windows and Android person. But like one of the things that was really frustrating to me about Apple in general is they just get really stubborn about these things that make no real sense, right? At least from a user perspective. And
yeah,
chief among that was not using USB-C on their iPhones, but using it on just about every other device they have. So now you just have to pay extra, which is probably, I guess, the ultimate reason for it, to use other things. There's no advantages of Thunderbolt. Is it Thunderbolt or Lightning? Oh, Lightning,
lightning.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, Lightning over USB-C. So there's not a real. I mean, you're already not using it in your other devices. It'd make a lot more sense if like you also had Thunderbolt and all your or Lightning and all your other devices. It's always confusing. Why do they use such similar names, right? Um, they have but if you had like you don't even have Lightning built into your MacBooks. Like that makes no sense at all. So for them to make the switch finally was just like, oh, thank God.
well, it does a lot of things actually. So one of the things that clicked in my mind immediately is that when you think about creating devices that will attach to your iPhone, so it could be
Hmm.
anything from someone creating a scanner that can, help determine if you have the flu or a power block or anything like that. Having universal cables like that allows for kind of new innovation. So
Yeah.
a lot of those, a lot of those devices that attach to USB-C that weren't able to connect to the iPhone now might be able to start doing that. You might see a whole new set of devices that connect to it that didn't exist before, that developers and companies and stuff like that just didn't want to go down the path of creating something that uses a separate cable and all that. Now try to
Yeah.
like connect all that stuff together. I think that's going to be the neatest part of it. And also too, like, you're at the airport and you need to plug something in and someone, leaves their USB-C cable behind, which they do all the time. You can just plug it in and
Hmm.
charge it. It's just going to create this nice ease, and it's going to reduce the amount of cables out there too, because like
Yeah.
I don't need any more, right? So if I get that phone, I have plenty of USB-C cables. I'm not going to buy anything new. I'm just going to stick with what I have existing, and go from there. So to me, it's the right move, even though that was forced. It is the right
Oh
move
yeah.
in my
It
opinion.
is the right move. I mean, especially from at least from a user perspective. And again, like my annoyances with Apple, this kind of goes all the way back to the FLAC versus ALAC audio codec stuff, where
Yeah,
they have to use their proprietary thing, even if it provides no advantages over the existing, open source free stuff that's out there like FLAC. But at the same time, what I found really entertaining is all of the marketing they're putting out about how good this is for the consumer. That USB-C will now be able to be interchangeable with all your other devices, and there'll be less clutter, and you can now have greater freedom with peripherals and all these other things. Completely ignoring the fact that they could have done this
yeah, I
years ago.
know.
It becomes like, well, if there's so many benefits to this, why did you need a entire coalition of countries forcing your hand to do it. Like, why don't
Yeah,
you just do what's right for the user? It's
I
just
know, I
the
know,
weird quirks of each company.
and that's the reason why this is a bonus episode, an important episode, is because we focus on user experience. If you're a new listener, and when you think about user experience, it's not always exactly what you want to do as a company, but it might be something that you should do for your customer. And so, in this
Mhm.
particular case, this is one of those ones that people were asking for. Even I've even heard people say, like, look, even if it's slower to charge, even if it's whatever, like the integration, the forgetting it, your cable when you're traveling, like there's a million reasons that I can't even think of in the moment that make it so much nicer to have USB-C on across all of your devices. And at some point, I'm sure there'll be a different version of USB
Mhm.
connectors, in the future, and then hopefully everyone can just sync with that and integrate with that and just make life easier for everyone. That old saying, D, what is it, like a rising tide raises all boats? Like I feel like that's kind of what
Yeah.
this is.
Yeah, and their USB-C integration is not perfect. They're lacking fast charging, even though it's pretty standard for other phones using USB-C. And I believe, unless you're getting the 15 Pro, you're going to be getting essentially USB 2 transfer speeds. When you can get, much, much faster, like USB 3.2 transfer speeds or whatever they renamed the USB standard to this week.
Yeah.
Um, it kind of feels like they cheaped out a little bit on that. There's not a real reason to do that anymore, especially when you're buying like $1,000 phone. So those are still things to move forward with. And one of the things I'm going to be looking out for is whether or not they're going to have some kind of software lockout for devices that aren't developed and marketed specifically as for iPhone
So
devices. Like
that's
if
going to
you
be
look
really
at,
interesting. Yeah, that's going to be really
yeah,
interesting because I know a lot of people who are hackers and stuff that are going to be like, okay, great, let's just start like trying to make stuff work with the
like
iPhone now.
jailbreak phones, yeah.
Yeah, and so we'll see how that kind of unfolds. But what were
Mm.
some of the other things that they announced that really kind of caught your attention?
So the next thing I saw, and I didn't quite, well, I'm not sure if I understand this one. So maybe you
Yeah.
can clear it up for me. So they have this digital island for notifications and kind of dynamic control of apps.
Uh huh.
And to me, it looked like it was just kind of a new visual stylization for the notifications drawer.
Yes.
Um, is it anything other than that, or is it just the same old notifications drawer, but now you have like it looks different?
To me, based on what I saw from I did watch it live when they were kind of going through it, is that it is a new visual form, but also it looks like you can actually uh, control some of those notifications in different ways. And I don't think we're going to
Hmm,
fully know what that looks like until we get to play with it. But I
that's a
think
good point.
it's an ease. It's like, okay, instead of swiping down, looking at all it's like being able to like quickly get to the notifications you need in the moment and respond to them
Yeah.
without having. So it's like fewer touch points, which is something Apple's very known for. Like anytime that they have an opportunity to try to do that, remember they tried to do that with the
Mhm.
keyboard, right? And then I believe that they took it out. Did they take it out?
It's hard
Remember
for
that?
me to keep track
Yeah.
between what everybody's doing. So let me ask you a question. So on Android phones,
Uh huh.
you can do things like pause and play content from the notification drawer. You can do some limited interaction with apps, kind of like a widget. Is that
Yeah.
currently available without the digital island?
Yeah, so to some extent. So like when I bring down my notification center right now, it's in front of me right now. Most of my notifications are like, "Hey, someone was spotted at the front door," or "Hey, here's this
Hmm.
great video from YouTube," or whatever. When I swipe to them, I can either clear them or I could do things like mute for an hour, view the settings, turn it off, like so
Okay.
things like that. And then within Notification Center, you can access things like your flashlight, your digital camera, like all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. So they do integrate a lot of those in there. I think this is the next level. I think it's a little closer to what you probably are experiencing, where you actually have a few controls of those particular notifications
Yeah.
without having to actually open up the app itself.
Yeah. So for me, for example, if I was listening to a podcast or audio or something, or I think for Chromecast you can, yeah, for Chromecast you can do it too. So if you have a Chromecast that's playing something on a TV,
Hmm.
then, or even, I don't even think it has to be casting from your phone. It could be casted from any device or just playing on its own. You can play and pause through that notification drawer without going into the app. So
Yeah.
that's
So I think they're getting closer to this. Like I said before on previous podcasts, to me, I feel like all it is both companies that, or many companies that kind of produce, I guess, different phones within Android, but like they're the Android platform itself versus the iPhone or iOS platform is that they're in this competition to literally meet in the middle. Like everything is eventually going to look exactly the same, feel the same. You should be able to pick
yeah,
up an Android or an iPhone and know how to use it within seconds because how many more changes or adjustments can you make to that software over time where you say, oh, well, this is so special. And the next person goes, yeah, well, I just did that or I've already done it. And so
yeah.
a lot of this stuff just goes past me because I don't care. Like I look at it, no, for real. Like I will figure it out when I get
It's
the new
true.
phone. If I don't need a new phone, but like if I got the new phone, I would just figure that part out. I'd play with it. Like my dad recently upgraded from a very old iPhone. He just didn't need it for anything else. But he's
Hmm.
actually switching to a newer iPhone, which has way more touch features on it. And so he's going to have to like figure out, okay, you swipe down to do this, swipe up to that. I'm now used to it. So this particular upgrade will would be just basically for me to get the USB-C.
Yeah,
Like that's the only reason to do it.
yeah. I mean, and I think a lot of people will just so they can consolidate their cabling and things. If I was getting an iPhone, I might wait until fast charging and 3.1 speeds were available for transfer. Even though I don't probably will never really use or almost never really use the 3.1 for
Yeah.
transferring. Almost everything I do is through cloud now. I think that's the case for most people.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
But it's just like, hey, why isn't it there? I think you make a really good point about the kind of like cross pollination, and this happens both ways, right? Apple introduces features like being able to access iMessage from your computer that then gets copied over onto Windows, Android devices, and then Android will develop things that then Apple copies. So this is just kind of par for the course. But when we see a release like this, we are looking for things that are going to be new that are eventually that will be the cross pollination, the things that get things rolling.
Well, Android is more like the platform where they'll actually try stuff like
Hmm.
that has never been done before. Apple's
Yeah,
more like I need to observe it, watch it, refine it, and then wait 3 extra years and then do it. Like that's just their company.
that
that's just their approach, you know.
that has
And
kind of become their MO recently. I don't think that was always the case, but I think it definitely has become recently where they'll wait and watch and see what other people do, experimenting with some new feature, and then they'll come out with a new feature to themselves. And of course, they'll name it something new and act like they've created it, and this is the most revolutionary thing that you've ever seen or done, like the tap to or bringing your phones close together to transfer contacts. Like that
yeah,
hasn't been doable on I think even on iPhone for like years and years now.
yeah. Well, one thing I will say is like I think at this point in the kind of evolution of these phones, I do believe I would probably be more conservative. Uh, I don't because I don't think it matters anymore. Meaning, like, if you have a billion people using your phone, I
Yeah.
think your upgrades you have to be almost 100% sure that those are really good for the customer because I don't think
Hmm.
that they care that much about a ton of software innovation. Like they
Yeah.
care a little bit, but not a ton. It's always around the hardware. It's always like, oh, you're gonna make it fit better in my pocket, or are you gonna make it so that I don't have to have a cover on it and I can drop it in the toilet and nothing's going to happen to it, right? Like all those things matter a lot, but when it comes to the
Hmm.
software, it all works really well. Both phones, both platforms, iOS, Android, they work so well. Like I don't see any reason to upgrade at all. Like from a
Yeah. And
software perspective, it's smooth, it's easy, it works every time. I'm good, right? Like that's how I feel right now, and that
yeah.
happens when the industry matures.
I think there are both platforms and a lot of many makers within those platforms are entirely viable at this point. There's not a clear winner between the two. And I think when these new phones come out, for the most part, we see like these very minor kind of incremental changes. So we have, for example, a new A16 chip
Yep.
for the Pro version, or wait, or maybe the 15 normal is getting in the A16 and the 15 Pro is getting it like a new chip or something like that. But at the end of the day, that's just going to be some performance enhancements. We haven't seen that turned into new use cases. And for us, if you're new here, we are much more focused on new use cases and much less spec bumps. So that's not super interesting to us.
Yeah, and I'll,
Um,
I'll tell you this right now, like my phone is very fast. Like when they say
mhm,
this is the fastest phone, it's like nothing in my mind clicks and goes like, "I need a faster phone." Like, not yet. Like, I
yeah,
have no issues. It is seamless. It's fast. Like, if you said it stayed like this for another 5 years, I'd be fine with it, right? That's just kind of
yeah,
where I think things are right now. Like, especially when they talk about things like the new focus adjust and like these different features for like taking amazing photography, right? It's so good at this point.
yeah.
Like, I don't know the difference.
Yeah, I feel the same way, especially when it comes to the camera. So the focus adjust is a feature where if you're using Android's portrait mode and you want to change the subject of that portrait, so maybe you have two people in the photo and you're focused on one person and you want to switch it to the other person, you can do that after the photo's taken. Which it's not that hard, really. You're just taking the photo with kind of a broad focal length, so they can capture both of them, and then it's adding the blur after the fact in order to kind of focus in on one subject.
Uh-huh.
But it will probably be a useful feature for some people, especially people who are very heavy on Instagram photography or influencers, things like that. So that's something that's new. Is that something you would expect to make use of in the way that you use your
Not
phone?
not for me personally. Like
Yeah,
I don't go to that level. Make whenever I see those features, I actually think I should get into photography. No, seriously, it always makes me think like
yeah,
I should learn more photography because they have such cool features and stuff, and we live in such a beautiful place, the Bay Area and stuff, that it would be kind of fun to like take pictures and figure this stuff out. That's usually what
yeah.
it does, kind of inspires me a little bit. The features that really kind of caught my attention, to be honest, with this announcement was like the stuff that had to do with SOS, like being able to like get help when you need it. The roadside assistance stuff I thought was super cool. Like being able to use your phone to use the satellite feature in order to access roadside assistance if your car breaks down through AAA and that kind of stuff. Like I feel like we're getting to a point now where like, your phone is not just this beautiful camera and a way to communicate with others, but it's this way to like access any information that is critical or necessary in the moment and allowing
Hmm.
it to make your life a little bit easier, safer, more comfortable. I feel like that's kind of the stuff that really kind of gets me excited.
Yeah, I think something like that is a tremendous value and should be kind of standard across the board. And we hear about people going missing when they're off hiking somewhere all the time. And if there was a way for phones to help to do more to help to locate them and save some lives, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. So what are some of the features that you thought were missing that you were hoping to see from the announcement?
Yeah, so I was expecting to see, or I was hoping to see a little bit more kind of innovation go on. And it felt a little bit like, well, we have to have USB-C, so here you go,
Yeah.
kind of a announcement to me. But we already mentioned the fast charging, which it blows my mind that fast charging isn't standard on every single phone because I feel like I'm extremely reliant on it, and the fact that I can plug in my phone and have it charged in like a half hour is dramatic, is just tremendous.
Yeah.
The I'm surprised it did not have an equivalent to Google's Magic Eraser because comparing the Magic Eraser feature to like a focus adjust feature is kind of a no-brainer. Like it can be hard to get a picture these days without a bunch of people in the foreground. So being able to remove them dynamically is fantastic, and I'm not sure why they haven't done it.
So Apple is known for this, right? Is that they have no interest in doing anything with with the iPhone in particular that is not kind of like already standard tech or like perfect, right? So like Magic
Yeah.
Eraser, as far as what I read, is really good, but it's not perfect, right? Same
Mhm.
thing with stuff like the AI based features like Google does with the call assist and that kind of stuff. Those really neat things. Like I think you even wrote down here in the notes, like the a live translation experience, like some of these really cool
Yeah.
things that Google is like pushing the limits on. Apple doesn't want to do that. Like they want to wait until it's like all dialed in and it's very easy to integrate, works, let's say 99% of the
Yeah.
time perfectly. And it's some people would say it's to their downfall, but then at the same time, to me, it's just on brand for them.
Well, I'm gonna push back on that a little bit because I feel like, for example, their fake bokeh portrait mode thing. I don't think
Uh-huh.
that works very well, honestly. Like you can absolutely see um, artifacting around the edges of your subject plenty of times, and I don't feel like it's that hard if you know how to use a good camera in order to get that kind of effect.
Uh-huh.
And when I see it, I usually don't love it unless somebody's like a very good just photographer from artistic standpoint, not just from a technical standpoint, and they're able to frame a photo up that really kind of communicates something. So I think that they do it all the time, where they put out features that aren't fully there. I mean, look at how many music streaming apps they had to put out before they finally kind of settled on one, right?
Yeah, but
I
I think
kind of think that they're just like I don't I get the feel from them that they just don't have the AI capabilities that something like Google has, and that's
oh
one of the
well,
reasons why it's
I
taken
don't
them
think
so
they
long.
do. D, I
Yeah,
don't think they do. I mean, that's Google's been working on this stuff for decades. You know, I
yeah,
feel like Apple's been focusing on kind of customer experience with the hardware products they build, but like
hmm
Google's been, I mean, they've been pushing the limits of artificial intelligence for a very long time. You know,
yeah.
I don't know that Apple has like the division to focus on that, the amount of energy and money that's required on that. I mean, you made a good comment the other day when we were talking. You said like, how long have we been waiting for the Apple Car? Like everyone keeps saying, oh, they're going to build an Apple Car because they have all this money. And I was like, yeah, it's possible. It's always possible
Yeah,
that you could kind of manufacture something or produce it. We haven't seen that yet. And I think with AI, it would take a long time before Apple's going to release something that's going to really make everybody kind of blow everybody's mind, you know?
this is also why I'm kind of skeptical about the Apple Car concept,
Yeah.
because everybody has their strengths, and
Yes.
one of the things that Google's strengths are is with the software engineering. And I feel like Apple's strength has been really not even the hardware design, the hardware engineering
Yes.
has been absolutely top notch. So
And
if you want,
their supply chaining and manufacturing,
yes,
like, that's, like, their thing. Yeah.
yes. So I think if you want like a really well designed hardware product that is manufactured to these insane tolerances, you go with Apple. If you want the software that's going to be pushing into new realms and works, ultimately, I feel like Google software in general is better. Like you compare Apple Maps to Google Maps is a perfect example. They also have access to a lot more data. Without those software features, if Apple puts out a car, it's just another car, right? So it's not kind of pushing that new ground as far as what a car needs to be.
Yeah, I mean,
If
like,
they
if I
can't put out a call assist feature,
yeah.
how are they going to put out a self driving feature?
Yeah, and so, like, when I you make a really good point because, like, when I think about it, when Apple announced, like, "Oh, you know, you can use satellite for SOS and all this kind of stuff," I thought to myself, "Okay, you're right in your line. Like, you're building this hardware that allows you to access a satellite and bring safety to you, but you're not necessarily like integrating that feature into a physical car that you're trying to manufacture in the moment, right?
Yeah,
Like you're staying in your lane. Just like when I see Google, like, here's a great example. Like, Apple has never produced like software that even comes close to the Google workflow software, like Sheets and all that kind of stuff. I think
yeah,
that, like, from a distance, like just standing back and looking at it, I over the last decade, the greatest thing that ever came out of Google was the kind of Office competitor. Like,
yeah.
I absolutely love that we could collab on things online. Everything always works. It's always being saved. I have my shared folders. All of our documents are in there. I don't have to save things on my laptop, that kind of stuff. Like, to me, that was like they pushed the envelope of that very early on and made it a reality. And that shows their software strength, right? Where Apple has pushed heavily into, like you said, the hardware and the just the beautiful phones and the makes you feel special and like all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And they've killed it in that space. And it's clear. And I think it's hard for a lot of people who don't live and work in the valley because you look at it and you go, they have $1 trillion. Of course they can build a car. Or of course and I get stuck in this trap as well. Is like, of course they could build robots or whatever. But like you say, you always say it, like, but that's not your competency. So you're going to have to like start from scratch,
Yeah.
so to speak. Like, you're going to
Well, it
have to
comes down to
rebrand what you do.
we always my phrase, maybe our phrase has been kind of culture is destiny when it comes to these companies.
Yes.
And if you could just throw money at something and gain like dominant market share, we'd all be using Google Buzz right now instead
Exactly.
of
Exactly.
Facebook and Twitter and stuff. So it's not just whether or not you have the money; it's whether or not you have the experience in leadership, not just the people that you hire or acquire from other companies or anything else, but in leadership to make the right decisions in order to bring these things to market.
Yeah, I think if Google could like theoretically hire Apple to produce the hardware version of their Android phones, I think they would.
Oh yeah,
They'd be
that
like,
would
"Can
be
you
the
produce
dream,
these?
right?
We'll do the software. Google does the software. You do the hardware, and we'll build the most amazing phone you've ever seen in your life."
That for me, that would be the dream because Google makes phones, Google Pixel, and they're pretty good, but it's not like they are producing all of these. Like you're not going to get a Chromebook that's going to be like top of the line stuff. And usually Chromebooks are like, oh hey, this is a thing that could be good for a limited use case student who's just doing a few things. But
Yeah,
they're not going to. They cannot compete on with Apple when it comes to hardware. Very clearly.
yeah. No, I would agree with you on that. I didn't hear anything about the integration of the Apple Vision Pro at all. Did you?
I did not. I went looking for it again. I wasn't. I had to look at this stuff kind of after the fact because I wasn't around for the event. I was a little surprised because Apple Vision Pro is their new big flagship kind of push, and any opportunity I would think to bring up some level of integration and say like, hey, if you get this, there's another reason to get the Apple Vision Pro.
Yeah.
Then they would jump on it. But I didn't see anything about it at all. I was a
No,
little surprised.
you know what my theory is behind that is I think that they're spearheading a new category here, and they don't want to blend those things too quickly. They want to find out over the next 2 years how people
Yeah.
feel about the Vision Pro, how it works, how it integrates, like that kind of stuff. And then from that point, they'll slowly add like some app on your phone that says like click here and then it connects to your Vision Pro or whatever is like I think they're gonna gingerly walk into this one.
Well, again, the Apple Vision Pro, we talked about this before. It just feels like this. It is a beautiful and well built and well designed hardware product. But right now, they think people are going to use it to look at their spreadsheets and surf the web. It just doesn't fit for me. If this was just like a platform that you can use in order to access like your gaming library, or if it was just like, oh, you could run like Oculus software on it or Vision, whatever they're calling it these days, MetaQuest or whatever. That would like make a lot more sense. I feel like there's a lot more use cases available through that platform than through Apple's current platform. So we'll see. This is one of the things where like the software is like not quite there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with all these announcements and kind of everything that's happening, like, do you think that there's going to be a huge adoption of customers basically coming into this new iPhone? Do you think the 15 is going to be kind of the one that kind of gets a huge push forward now that they switched to USB-C?
No, no, not at all. But what I do ultimately, if you wanted a USB C, you're going to be using an Android phone, and I think people
Yeah.
who are using Android phones in general are pretty satisfied with them. I think what this is going to do, though, is the people that were holding off that had iPhones, who are like 4 year old iPhones, who didn't feel like they needed to upgrade. This might be the thing that gets them to say, look, you know what? There's finally like a real tangible change to the hardware that is going to make my life easier because I don't have to deal with like having multiple cables. This will be the time when they actually do upgrade.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just gonna say 100%. Like that's my theory is that all the people who are sitting on the sidelines waiting to upgrade, or just maybe thought about it but never really got to it, this will be the one that they upgrade to. The 15 will be the next step.
Yeah,
So I think they'll see a boost kind of in that space. But like I'm looking forward to seeing how all this stuff kind of integrates down the line. And to kind of wrap up, because this was just a little bonus episode, is I want to see the Vision Pro, iPhone, whole ecosystem integration. Like I'm really excited to see how they're going to try to do that. I also would like to get my hands on a Vision Pro and actually spend some time playing with it and kind of like create some, use cases and scenarios in my own head around it and kind of see how it unfolds. But I felt that way when they released the watch, and I know they did spec bumps on the watch for this one, but like how are they going to integrate? And I think they've done a really good job of integrating the watch into the phone. Like a lot of people I know that
Yeah.
have them really enjoy like a lot of the medical features, and they really like how you can seamlessly kind of control your notifications and get your health data and use that health data appropriately with whatever app you're interested in and stuff. I think they've done a good job with that. So like if they did that with the Vision Pro, it would be really neat to see what that looks like. Even though you and I are kind of a little skeptical about it, it'll be fun to see how they think about it
Yeah.
as we kind of move forward.
Well, I'm hopeful. I hope they stick with the Vision Pro. I hope they do some very interesting things with it. Again, it's a very just beautiful piece of hardware. But they need to kind of. I don't think it's an enterprise piece of hardware, especially for the price tag. So we'll see what they do with that. And I do think that this opens the door for them switching to USB-C. You're right. I think it opens up a lot for third party uh, peripheral support. I think
Yep.
there probably could have been a lot of cases where peripherals people didn't want to commit to using a completely different hardware standard, like
Yep.
from the manufacturing standpoint, just to support one type of device that's honestly not as popular outside of the US.
Yeah. No, it's
Um,
true. It's true. I think this
yeah,
will open up a whole new category, and as long as you know, just as you're to go back to your point really quickly on the Vision Pro, as long as it doesn't become the Nintendo Power Glove, I think they'll be okay. You know what I mean?
or the Virtual Boy.
Or the Virtual Boy. Yeah.
It's more like the
It's
Virtual
funny
Boy.
as a side note. I was in San Jose last week because there was a competition for my son's sports that he does, and we
Mhm.
stopped at. D, have you ever been to Space Cat before? The
Space Cat sounds so
comic book
familiar.
store.
No, I haven't been to Space Cat. Where is that one? It's probably
It's
over
it's
like towards the Campbell
amazing.
side.
No, it's actually kind of near Falafel Drive-In, right around the corner from
Oh,
Falafel Drive-In.
okay. Oh no,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. That's where I've seen it before. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know where
So
that
anyway,
is.
so we went into Space Cat, and he was looking for comics, and it was just like a quick stop on the way home. And I went over to the left side of the store, and they have every former game system ever for sale.
Oh,
Every
for sale.
and the games, yeah, everything. And
Can you get a ColecoVision?
yes,
Wow.
they had everything. I was like standing there like a kid in a candy store. I was like, oh my gosh, this makes me want to go back and get everything. And then you play the games for a while and you realize they're kind of boring, you know. But like I looked at it and I was like, wow, they have like all the Nintendo components and like the Power Gloves and all that. It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. If, at the very least, since you live near that area, you should go
Yeah.
inside and take a look at all of it. They had all the Nintendo games laid out, and you could buy them. I think they were somewhere between $3 and $8 a piece, and
Hmm.
it was just a neat experience. But anyways, we should wrap up since this was a quick bonus episode. Thank you everyone for listening. Really appreciate it. As we mentioned on the last episode, we have wrapped up our season. This was just a little bonus to talk about something that was kind of a big announcement. But we're going to take a little bit of time off, kind of reframe things and figure out what we want to do for next season. But we really appreciate everything you've done for us, and continue to listen to us. And hopefully you can write us some really nice reviews if you really enjoy this podcast. All right, everyone. We will see you all next season.